Hello and welcome. This is Kristen from the Online Selling Show, and I'm going to do a special episode and try to convince you why it's important to do physical inventory in your business. I'm going to give you some history as to how I got to that point of having the belief of why physical inventory is important. And hopefully this is also part of the reason and how I'm going to convince you that doing physical inventory is a necessity. It's another one of those chores in your business that needs to get done at least once a year. I started working for the state of New Jersey in the late 90s, and I was maybe in my mid-20s. I think I started there when I was like 25, and I got into a unit. It was a specialized unit, and it was one that I was pretty much like it. There was 3 of us total on the team, but this particular role, I handled warrants. I was it. And there had been a little bit of a change of turnover through this particular department. And I can tell you, I know everybody wants to say that they're like overworked, and especially in the government, like you always hear that there's overworking and stuff. I will tell you that during the time I was there, the state of New Jersey went through this whole unification, and they did this whole reevaluation of what different counties were doing and stuff. And our particular division, or our particular unit of the division, was doubled. The whole division was doubled in the amount of personnel that came through. We may have even been slightly more than doubled, meaning if we had 10 employees, instead of just having 20, maybe we got 22 employees. So we definitely were overworked and understaffed. And when I got the division, or got my particular department, my job duties of handling these warrants, there was really no training. There was very, very little of anything of precedent and that type of thing. It was very much like, throw me in the deep end and here you go. And what I can say is that when you had the warrants, the warrant files were separated, supposedly different from everybody else's. We were in this very large room, and the filing cabinets were like, for them, like somewhat close by, but not. And I worked with a woman, and she's a friend of mine, and we laugh about it, so it's not like I'm like telling anything, but she would call me up, and that was her job, to tell me like what warrants had been executed the night before. And she would call me up, and it would be like, she would call me and tell me like, they arrested like Albert Spencer last night. And trying to get me was very difficult, because I mentioned I was the only one. So I would have to be up in the holding cell. If somebody surrendered, I'd have to go up to the judge's chambers, because all of a sudden they needed something. I'd have to be in court at a certain time every day. There was like, God forbid, if I had to try to go to the bathroom, I could hear people like, looking for me. It was like nuts. Okay. I'm just like trying to set the stage. It was just crazy. So her calling me became very difficult. She would have to keep calling to let me know like who got arrested, because that was what I knew then I had to start working on for who to bring to court. So she would call me and she'd tell me like, oh, I have like Albert Spencer. And I'd be like, okay, and I would just make myself a note. And when I got the chance, I'd go over to the files and try to get the files together to get this stuff prepared. And I'd go over there and I'd be like, I've got a Spence, but that's like, I don't know, Robert Spence. And then I would be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I don't see them in jail. Like, I would start doing the background, and I'm like, this isn't the person. So I would put that file aside. And then I would start doing like some other work. And then it would be like, all right, now I'm looking for Albert. Is there any Alberts? And I had like 2,000 warrants. So this would go on to a point where I'd have like maybe 3 possibilities, because she was notorious for getting names wrong. Like, it could probably be not Albert Spencer. It would probably be like Alfred, I don't know, Spicer. And I would be like, how did you get that? Or like, there'd be like 3 like Juan Garcias. And it's like, I don't know which one. And it just became like, we would just laugh, because trying to get me was impossible. Me trying to figure out what she said it was supposed to be was like just a joke. And, in this time period, we did come up with a solution where she would just fax me a list once a day with case numbers and their names, because we didn't want to put date of birth and that kind of stuff in there. So we just did the case number and the names. And that was like, okay, great. But what was happening when we got to that point was like, I would grab, like, say 3 files that I thought it could possibly be. And then I'd start realizing, like, I don't know where, like, this person, you know, like, I would have the file and I'd start doing the research and I would look and the case has been closed, but I still got the file in there thinking it's still open. Or like, I would call her and I'd say, you know, did you really mean this person? And she would say, no, that person's warrant got executed like last year. And I'd be like, but I still got the file here saying it's supposed to be open. So this went like back and forth with us starting to realize that like our file, like my files were so all over the case of scenarios. And I'm not saying like anything inappropriate happened, meaning like people got arrested and they shouldn't have been, or don't take that way at all. No. But it would get to the point where, you know, I started to realize like files weren't in the right location in the office where they needed to be, or people didn't like finish the work out of the computer, meaning that, you know, that warrant got executed last year and they should have finalized everything in the computer. And I don't want to print, like I said, I'm not pointing fingers, because people really had these enormous caseloads and it was a long time ago. The systems in the computer were so different and it was just a mess. And it's just not in my nature to leave it like that. And that's how it started. It took probably over a year. And that's where my first introduction to this physical inventory situation really became, like, I couldn't deny it. When I had stacks and stacks and stacks of folders that for various reasons needed work done to them that had been left behind and not gotten done, you know, I started working late. I started coming in early, whatever it took, because I did not like to work in that kind of disarray. And it really was great, because by the time I got done that year and a half, I may have still had 2,000 warrants, but I knew they were 2,000 solid warrants, because maybe those cases got executed last year, but those warrants should have been reissued again. Or, you know, the case should have been closed and that file was gone, but somebody else was coming in. So there was a real reason, like, that all of this needed to get done. It couldn't be ignored. And when I wound up managing that unit, it became an annual thing. I can't remember, because it's been so long now, if we did it once or twice a year. And it never, ever failed in that no matter how fail safe I tried to make things to stay solid, not have problems or errors, there was always something. We never ever got it to a point where somebody ever did that and said, everything's perfect. It never happened. And I'm talking, we were diligent. We were on it. The unit was doubled, but there was just always something beyond our control or whatever, all scenarios, that we had to do the physical inventory. You know, sometimes like the caseworkers needed the files to maybe do an adjustment. They took the file out of our drawers and then they just didn't realize the warrant was still active and they put it back in their drawer. Sometimes it was just as simple as that. You just needed to go get the files and put them back where they were for the situation that they were in. Or vice versa. We dealt with all the files and then we put it back in our drawers and never realized that we were done with it and had to go back. So there's all scenarios under that. I said, well, that's like great, and that was a good story, and it wasted a lot of my time. But I'm saying is, like, it's still going to happen for you, because leaving it from that scenario, I then got into, at the same time, I started doing my eBay stuff. And we're going back, when I started eBay, I mean, I'm talking the wild, wild west. I've said it before, I took pictures of my mother's video camera, and I could only get 4 pictures on that memory card. And I had to put it in a memory card reader. I had to do, like, the HTML with the brackets to put like BR for a break. And I mean, this is just where it was. And I say this because there was things happening, and I just took it to be at first that it was me not knowing what I was doing. And, you know, it was just a one-time thing. And then as eBay evolved, things in the education come along with it. And eventually I decided to become more serious and not do this as a hobby business. And I started to get into groups. And back then we used to just basically have like a party line. We would all get on like a phone line of some sort with our mentor, kind of like what the Zoom calls are now, but we didn't have the video capacity to it. And we started to realize as we started talking that like we were all having similar issues. And that was like, eBay was dropping listings. So we thought like product was listed and it wasn't for whatever reason, or they had a glitch and maybe we thought something was listed, but because we didn't finish something in the listing process, it never got listed. We had problems where they were selling things more than once. There was all kinds of different growing pains that Amazon had, or excuse me, eBay had as well. Amazon had their own too, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about eBay here. That as I was doing this stuff with my job, and I started feeling some of this like disorganization and pains in my trying to get serious with a business on eBay, I knew I had to start doing it. I knew I had to start putting that in place. And I mean, I'm talking, I had a couple hundred, close to 2,000 listings as well on eBay. And it was like, I had to, you know, do these things and get them, you know, inventoried, because I can't tell you how many times I would be in there and I would be like, God, I can't believe this kind of thing didn't sell. And then I would realize like the listing was never up. And there's another benefit to it as well, is that when I look at stuff, my wholesale business, everything deals with Excel spreadsheets. It's all Excel spreadsheets. It's so different when I'm looking at something on a spreadsheet, but then I'm actually tangibly in the goods and in the products and stuff. So I'm going to just make up an example, is that maybe I'm outsourcing a ton of pillows, and when I start realizing and I go into my actual goods, I start realizing I got so many pillows. Like, I need to stop sourcing pillows because they're not really selling. Or maybe you're a clothes seller and you start realizing that, you know, I'm in sourcing all these sandals and slippers and sneakers, and my slippers, I don't see, I have so many slippers that are still here. Like I said, when they're just numbers and things like that on an Excel spreadsheet, it's so easy to just sort and deal with data. But when you're physically in it and your hands are on it and you're visually seeing it, it's so different then. And if you're not doing physical inventory, I really do believe you're going to be surprised if you do take my advice and do it, as to what, you know, you may find it is a benefit as well. Because I've seen it already in just these couple of months where I haven't been listing and I've been still selling, where I start condensing and I'm like, wow, like, I guess I really did move some product out of here. And now I condense down and I'm like, I gained all this space. And that's been like a positive thing as well. Or I'm going to tell you, I did a video on it. There is such a thing as the touch theory, is that you get in there and you start moving stuff and you touch it and you just, you know, kind of start like thinking like, you know, what am I going to do to get this stuff sold? And then bam, that thing will sell. It never, ever fails. It always happens. And you can leave me some comments below, because I can guarantee you've either already experienced it or you're going to experience it if you haven't had it, because I have seen it. I have laughed about it with almost every employee I've ever had, every family member that's been with me. We've all seen it. It's hysterical. And one of the last benefits I can tell you once you start doing it is, you know, we start doing this sell similar on other people's titles and listings and stuff like that, making it so much quicker and simpler to get something listed. But when I started doing physical inventory on the stuff already that I have in this new store I started last year, was I would be doing what was in my mind such a common keyword to find this in my listings, and they wouldn't show up. And I'm like, because I was doing these sell similars and I wasn't always in that frame of mind, and it was like, well, no wonder the stuff isn't selling, because I'm not using these common keywords that I think would be needed to get the stuff sold. And I can think of one thing in particular. I changed the title, and within like 10 minutes that item sold when I put the proper keyword in the title. It was a Christmas organizer, and this was before Halloween that I did this, and it sold like that fast, because I put the proper keyword in the title. And if I didn't do the physical inventory and start using the organizer in the title and realizing like it's not, why I know this was listed, I would have done that change. I'm hoping this convinces you. Maybe it's just entertained you. Maybe it frustrated you. I don't know. Please leave some constructive comments down below. I'm hoping I convinced you that you need to give physical inventory a place of you know, another procedure that your business needs. Maybe it needs it once a month. Maybe it needs it once a year. But I think for a lot of reasons, there are justifications that it has to be a procedure every whatever time period done. I think you will thank yourself for it. It is a lot of work. I understand that. I've done more than I can tell you of that. And even in my wholesale business, it's going on right now. A lot of people choose to do it at the beginning of the year because of, you know, having to get certain things to the CPAs and doing your taxes and stuff. And that's usually when people choose to do it. But you don't have to. You can do it whenever, you know, whenever's convenient for you. For us, it's a time when most items are at the lowest of their inventory, and it makes sense to do it as well. Another thing to consider. But I would appreciate a thumbs up if you got any good content out of this. I would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. Not only would it put my future videos in your feed, it would really, really help me by helping me grow this channel. And I am going to say bye for now. I will catch you on the next one.